Okay, now we are ready. Amen. Welcome, everyone. We're going to continue on in our book of Judges study as we go over this. And I think I just want to, when we get through, I think the appropriate place is after Judges. So when we get through the book of Judges, I think then is when I want to do a few week study of Islam and some certain, especially their eschatological kind of or eschatological, however you want to say it, their views, because I think it's interesting, and I think it's important for us to know with the rise of it, where it's waning in certain countries, but here in our country, people are asleep. People are asleep, and they don't realize all of the stuff that's going on, and even with the influx of the people from India on the HB1 visas, and the way that that's been manipulated and corrupted, as all things in federal government. And, we've even got just more and more of these strange beliefs that are creeping into our country, and we have to be aware of it. And I think we should always be cognizant of what it is that they believe, and how we can have conversations when we encounter it. Because I think they're important. And in all honesty, I mean, it's reasoning with them is like reasoning with the LDS. It's like nailing Jello to the wall. So, but it's important for us. It's important for us to know
Knox Jello
a lot of these.
you could do it.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I think it's important, and we'll. I think the appropriate place is when we get done with the Book of Judges, because we've only got a few more chapters to go. So I think that'd be a good time to start. Maybe we'll do that through the more of the summer season. So that'll get us into that. Anyways, we're in Judges 13. We're going to be looking at Samson and some different things about his life. And so with that being said, let's just go ahead and dive right in, because I want to get into some certain things about his life. And of course, this is, as children, we were all taught about Samson and Delilah, all these stories. And it's amazing when you read the stories and when you start digging into it, how different it is than those childhood stories. There he's just a strong man and takes on the lion and all that other stuff. And that's what they focus on with kids. But there's much more going on. And a lot of it really is, it's kind of a strange story, because it's kind of bizarre when you think about it, especially different parts and pieces of it. But and there's some important things that we need to draw out of the stories there. And one of the things too also is we're reading through these. When I say story, I mean account. They're actually accounts. They're presumably they are real people, real events in real history that took place. And the big picture, of course, is how God interacted at that time with his people. And this is, there is one saying that is going to come out here a couple of times, and it's central to this whole book of Judges. And we'll get there in a little bit, and you'll recognize it when we get there. We'll cover it. So let's start in verse 1 of chapter 13 of Judges, the story of and the miraculous birth of Samson. Now the sons of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord, sight of Yahweh, so that Yahweh gave them into the hands of the Philistines 40 years. One of the things to keep in mind is when you start adding up all the years, this is a pretty good swath of time. It's not just a little short. I mean, you read them so fast, it seems like a real short amount of time, but it's actually quite a bit of years, quite a few years.
That first paragraph, you got 1 and 2 right there, sin and servitude.
Yeah.
So
So they're doing their pattern again. They're in sin, they're idolatrous, and they're angering the Lord. Verse 2, and there was a certain man of Zorah, the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and had borne no children. And then the angel of Yahweh appeared to the woman and said to her, Behold now, you are barren and have borne no children, but you shall conceive and give birth to a son. Now it's interesting to think that the angel of the Lord comes to the woman and lets her know this thing, and not the man, which is just an interesting observation.
Probably a good thing, though.
Yeah.
since she's the one
Let her know.
Having a baby, right?
Yeah.
Just like Mary.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Just like with Mary and so it's just an interesting observation there. And he tells her that she's going to conceive. She hasn't had a child, and so she would be well aware of that. And then in verse 4, and now therefore be careful not to drink wine or strong drink, not to eat any unclean thing. For behold, you shall conceive and give birth to a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the boy shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel from the hands of the Philistines. Now, this is the only judge that is foretold that this is going to be the thing. You know, with Gideon, the angel of the Lord came and told him that that's what was going to happen. But this is foretelling. This is one of the places where we see the act of predestination. He's predestined, and she's told she's to have a specific diet, and there's certain things she's not to indulge in. And so he is, as we're going to read, we'll go into Numbers and check that out, because she's told that he's going to be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel from the Philistines. Now, what do we know about the Nazarites, or the Nazarite? What it means to be a Nazarite, and what's involved in all that. And it's something that in Numbers, so in number 6, or excuse me, number 6, let me turn there real quick. She's foretold of what this child is going to be. So there's a presumption on their part that, hey, there's something different about this kid. He's not going to be your typical kid. She's told not to participate in certain things to eat. So Numbers, I'll write this down. So the Nazarite here in number 6. Number 6, it is a vow. And it's a special vow.
Yeah, a special vow.
It's a special vow that people would make. So this is the only place we see that in Scripture, in particular, other than maybe John the Baptizer. He was a little bit different too, and he was set apart. And that's what it's about, really. It's about God setting him apart for a specific, exact thing.
Yep.
And so that's what this is about. The Nazarite vow is a little bit different, so there are some differences, but they're very similar. But the angel of the Lord doesn't lie, and he said he's going to be a Nazarite to God. He's going to be set apart, and that's really what it's focusing on. So in verse 1 of chapter 6 of Numbers, it says, and again Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the sons of Israel, and say to them, when a man or a woman makes a special vow, the vow of a Nazarite, to dedicate himself to Yahweh, and that is to separate themselves for God for a specific reason. And he or she, I'm going to add she every once in a while, because it does say this is for men and women. It's not just men. And I think it's important that we know that. Even though the rest of the text just says he, I will include he or she, just so that we understand that. Shall abstain from wine, strong drink, and he shall drink no vinegar, whether made from wine or strong drink. Neither shall he drink any grape juice, nor eat fresh or dried grapes. So the vine was totally off limits. Yep. No can do, don't even be around it. No. Which there's no explanation for it other than the fact that God says, don't do this. If you're going to make a Nazarite vow, here's what you got to give up. And it was a big part of their lives. You know, grapes were a big part of the life. And think about it. Think about it as a kid, never growing up having ever tasted grapes.
fresh or dried.
Yeah.
Or raisins.
All
Yeah.
the days of his separation, you
Yeah.
shall eat nothing that is produced by the grapevine, not even the seeds or the skin.
Yeah. Nothing.
Nothing.
Zero. It's void. You can't even touch them.
Yeah.
So it's one of those deals where it's inconceivable in my mind because
Yeah.
I think as kids, I mean, moms feed kids grapes,
Well, in grape leaves,
Grape
they use
leaves,
that
yeah.
in cooking
Yeah.
over there and stuff.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so he couldn't
not
have
even-
nothing to
none
do
of
with it.
Yeah.
So when they were making this vow, it's a person who's volitionally making the vow here. The difference is the fact that God has foreordained this. So there's foreordination that's going on, predestination, and God is saying, this is what I'm going to do with this kid. And he said, I'm going to give you a kid, so here's what you're to do. And then it says, in all the days of his separation, he shall not eat anything that is produced by the grapevine or the seeds or even the skin. All the days of his vow of separation, no razor shall pass over his head. He shall be holy until the days are fulfilled for which he separated himself to Yahweh. He shall let the locks of his hair on his head grow long. And all the days of his separation to Yahweh, he shall not go near a dead person. He shall not make himself unclean for his father or his mother. So if his father died, it's like, I can't go.
No.
can't be there.
Or his sister.
Or his sister, anybody.
Anyone.
Yeah. And he particularly says this about the family because that's,
Yep.
we would be inclined to do that.
Because
Yeah. And that's because of this vow.
right.
And because his separation to God is on his head.
Yeah.
All the days of his separation, he is holy unto Yahweh.
Mm.
Now, here's one of the things that you find amazing when you think about this vow is if he's walking along with his pal and they're walking through the woods, say they're going hunting together, which he wouldn't be because he's got to stay away from dead things. But, I'm just using this, or they're walking through the field and his friend has an aneurysm or heart attack.
He can't help it.
Well, and he's going to be held accountable for that.
Mhm.
It's like, even if it's not, he had nothing to do with it. This is how serious God takes these things. And he says, if this should happen, if somebody suddenly dies, we'll read a little bit further, and it's kind of quite amazing when you read it. He says here in verse 9, but if a man dies very suddenly beside him, and he defiles his dedicated head of hair, that then he shall shave his head on the day when he becomes clean. He shall shave it on the 7th day. Then on the 8th day he shall bring 2 turtle doves, 2 young pigeons to the priest, to the doorway of the tent of meeting, because remember they had the tabernacle set up at that time. And the priest shall offer one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering, and make atonement for him because his sin, concerning his sin because of the dead person. And that same day he shall consecrate his head, and shall dedicate to Yahweh his days as a Nazarite, and shall bring a male lamb a year old for the guilt offering, but the former days shall be void because his separation was defiled. So he's got to start all over again. And he has to bring an offering. God holds him accountable as if it's sin. And he calls it sin. And that's just amazing to think about how holy that God really is when in all of these things.
Maybe that's why they were so loners.
Yeah, it's beyond my comprehension. This kind of a thing, when you read that, you kind of get shocked, like, whoa, wait, he's got to atone for his own sin. And all he did was be with his pal, and his pal suddenly dies. But that's how serious that's how serious God takes it. It's as serious as a heart attack. So I just wanted to read that in passage. So this is what Samson is being prepared for. Now, Samson, some things are a little bit different, as we're going to see. And then let's see, back in verse 6 of Judges 13. We'll continue on with our story of Samson. Then the woman came and told her husband, in verse 6, chapter 13, saying, a man of God came to me, and his appearance was like the appearance of an angel of God, very awesome. And I did not ask him where he came from, nor did he tell me his name. Now notice it's an angel of God. She recognizes it's somebody not normal, but she calls him a man. So that's one of the reasons why we believe with angels, they can take the form of a man somehow, some way, and they look and appear like men, but different. Something about him is different. And in this way, she's like, he looked like an angel of God, whatever that means.
It was very awesome.
Very
It really
awesome,
was.
yeah. Yeah. So,
It was totally awesome.
yeah. Yeah, totally awesome, dude. I couldn't help it.
Super down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was, and she's just telling him, this is what took place. In verse 7, but he said to me, behold, you shall conceive and give birth to a son, and now you shall not drink wine or strong drink, nor eat any unclean thing, for the boy shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death. So his life is
Wow.
God's. It's in God's hands.
Dedicated.
Yeah,
hard.
it's-
Wow.
It's all whatever's God's going to do with him. He's going to give us a son, but he's going to be dedicated to God. Verse 8. Then Manoah entreated the Lord, or Yahweh, and said, "O Adonai, please let the man of God whom thou hast sent come to us again, that he may teach us what to do for the boy who is to be born." Now, this is kind of a cool thing to think about, because Manoah took his wife's story and all right.
Yeah.
So he did the right thing. He immediately goes to God, and he's like, please send this guy so he can instruct us, because this sounds pretty serious. He's taking God seriously. And so he's just like, what are we supposed to do? And verse 9, and God listened to the voice of Manoah. That's how awesome God is. That's how personal he is. In the Old Testament, we often overlook the fact that he is that personal. And he listens to him, and he answers him. And the angel of God came again to the woman as she was sitting in the field, but Manoah, her husband, was not with her. So the woman ran quickly and told her husband, and behold, the man who came the other day has appeared to me. Then Manoah arose and followed his wife. And when he came to the man, he said to him, "Are you the man who spoke to the woman?" He said, "I am." Yeah, I am. Interesting. Yeah. And Manoah said, "Now, when your words come to pass, what shall the boy's mode of life and his vocation?" So the angel of Yahweh said to Manoah, "Let the woman pay attention to all that I said. She should not eat anything that comes from the vine, nor drink wine or strong drink, nor eat any unclean thing. Let her observe all that I have commanded." Then Manoah said to the angel of Yahweh, "Please let us detain you so that we may prepare a kid for you." And the angel of Yahweh said to Manoah, "Though you detain me, I will not eat your food. But if you prepare a burnt offering, then offer it to Yahweh." That's an interesting insight right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I won't eat it, but if you give a burnt offering, I'll accept it,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of gives us a clue. It's almost like him winking, wink, wink.
I like that. I am.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. For Manoah did not know that he was an angel.
He was
of
the angel.
The angel,
of
yeah.
Yahweh.
And so Manoah said to the angel of Yahweh, "What is your name? So that when your words come to pass, we may honor you." The angel of Yahweh said to him, "Why do you ask my name? Seeing it is wonderful."
How about that? Wonderful counselor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And his name shall be called
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, and it could be translated really as incomprehensible. That word that's there in the Hebrew. It's wonderful. It's like awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
You couldn't even understand it if I told you.
Full of wonder.
Yeah, yeah. So
And it's like in my translation, it says beyond understanding.
yeah, exactly. It's incomprehensible. You couldn't even get it if I told you. So Manoah took the kid with the grain offering and offered it on the rock to Yahweh, and he performed wonders while Manoah and his wife looked on. I wish we were told.
I know. I wish we knew it
Like,
was.
man, I wonder what was going on.
He did a wondrous thing, is
Yeah.
what this says, while
Yeah.
Noah and his wife looked on.
Yeah.
And
And-
King James Version said, instead of wonderful, it says secret.
Yeah, that
Incomprehensible.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a better translation.
Yeah, the secret kind of implies like he couldn't tell them.
Yeah, you couldn't tell what's
But
going
And
on.
they-
He's just
they were
saying
told they
you wouldn't
wouldn't
understand.
understand
No, for them, it's not like I
You wouldn't
didn't understand. It's just like blew my
Oh,
mind.
yeah.
Incomprehensible.
You couldn't. You can't
Because
get it.
now read the next sentence, right?
Yeah, so
Indeed.
let's see.
Verse 20.
Yeah, verse. Oh, yeah. So he performed the wonders, and then for it came about when the flame went up from the altar toward heaven, that the angel of Yahweh ascended in the flame of the altar.
Yeah.
When Manoah and his wife saw this, they fell on their faces to the ground.
They hit him.
So they worshiped. Yeah,
Whoa, that
Yeah.
was
that was the
that
one.
was
who,
the one, the
Yeah.
Lord.
So so Manoah said to his wife, "We shall surely die, for we have seen God." So they recognize this isn't just an angel.
Well, you missed a sentence.
Uh,
Verse 21.
Oh, yeah.
Now
Now the angel of the Lord appeared no more to Manoah or his wife. Then Manoah knew that he was the angel of Yahweh. So Manoah said to his wife, "We shall surely die, for we have seen God." So he believed what Moses, he believed what all that. If you look at God, you're going to die. He's probably thinking, hearkening back to when God said that you can't look upon me and on the mountain.
Mhm.
And he's probably thinking of that. He's like, God's going to take us out now.
So was that maybe like a theophany or?
Oh, it's definitely a theophany. It
Yeah,
was more than likely a
I
Christophany.
think so. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it was a Christophany.
Yeah.
Pre-incarnate. It was
Yeah.
Christ. The angel of the Lord typically is. Yeah.
Yeah, in most places it is. When you see
Yeah.
the angel of the Lord, that's usually him.
Yeah.
But in this case, he's kind of freaked out, which shows that he has a really deep understanding. He's a very devout man.
He's got good theology.
Yeah, he does. He understands that this is not normal.
Mhm.
This is miraculous. This is something that God doesn't do. And one of the things too is he recognizes he's been in the presence of God. I don't deserve this. I think there's part of that's going on. God should take me out. I think it's humbling to him, and he realizes that.
Mhm.
And he says, "We've seen God. We're going to die." But in verse 23, but his wife said to him, "If Yahweh had desired to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering from our hands. Nor would he have shown us all these things, nor would he have let us hear things like this at this time." So she's common sense. She's like, he already said he's going to give us a son, so stop it, knock it off. And she's right.
Yeah.
It just makes sense. It's like he just told us we're going to do this, and this is how we're to raise them. Why would he now all of a sudden kill us? That doesn't make sense. So God is consistent, and this is just an amazing thing when you think about this, that God is a personal God,
Mhm.
and that he deals with people even then in the midst of the congregations. He deals with people individually.
Mhm.
So verse 24, then the woman gave birth to a son and named him Samson. And the child grew up, and the Lord, or Yahweh, blessed him. Whew, it's hot.
It's a little.
And the spirit of Yahweh began to stir him in Machane Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. So for chapter 14. Then Samson went down to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnah. So obviously he's a grown man now. He's an adult.
Didn't even take a full chapter.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, boom.
Just a verse.
Yeah.
He's born, and then the Spirit of the Lord
That's right.
begins to stir him. So God is working within him and using him for his obvious purposes. And then it says, then Samson went down to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnah, one of the daughters of the Philistines. And so you could say that Samson had a wandering eye. He liked women. He was a manly man.
He's a man's man.
He was a virile man, and
Testosterone.
yeah. And so he came back, verse 2, and told his father and mother, I saw a woman in Timnah, one of the daughters of the Philistines. Now, therefore, get her for me as a wife. Strike one. Yeah. He's,
Eh.
yeah. They know full well, God has already told them, you're not to intermarry. And here he sees this woman. But remember, the verse 25 of the last chapter is a clue. God is already working.
Mhm.
And so it's not just a quinkydink. It's not just he just happened to see this woman. And God is doing something, and somehow, some way, the Spirit is leading. But God is not the one that ultimately is causing him to do anything. He's making these choices, but still, God is working within him and setting stuff up. As you remember from earlier, because he says that he's going to be a judge and to deliver the people. So this is one of the instances where God is working that behind the scenes. It's a Philistine that he's interested in, and then his father and his mother said to him, is there no woman among the daughters of your relatives, or among all our people that you go to take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? But Samson said to his father, get her for me, for she looks good to me.
My
Yeah,
translation says,
She
for she is right in my eyes.
Yeah, she looks right in my eyes. Yeah, now that's one of the things that we're going to see is an important thing to think about, because if you remember the first, the whole theme is they were doing what was right in their own eyes. So
Yep.
Samson has this thing, and he's like,
Same attitude right
she's right in my eyes.
there.
So verse 4, however, his father and mother did not know that it was Yahweh, for he was seeking an occasion against the Philistines. Now at that time, the Philistines were ruling over Israel. So God's working within Samson. And this is why it's not quinkydink. It's he's kind of coordinating, or he's kind of orchestrating all of these things. And this is going to be one of the ways that he can start being a judge, because they're going to tick him off, and he's going to have a good cause. Verse 5, then Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother, and came as far as the vineyards of Timnah, and behold, a young lion came roaring toward him. And the Spirit of Yahweh came upon him mightily, so that he tore him as one tears a kid through. Though he had nothing in his hands, but he did not tell his father or mother what he had done. So he went down and talked to the woman, and she looked good, or she was right in his eyes, to Samson. And this is one of those situations where, you couldn't talk him out of it. He was just going to go forward with this regardless. Verse 7, so he went down and talked to the woman, and she looked good to Samson. When he returned later to take her, he turned aside to look at the carcass of the lion. Behold, a swarm of bees and honey were in the body of the lion. So he scraped the honey into his hands and went on, eating as he went. When he came to his father and mother, he gave some to them, and they ate. But he did not tell them that he had scraped the honey out of the body of the lion. Now, here's one of the things.
So now the dead lion isn't that.
He's unclean.
Yeah.
So Samson is guilty, and he's given his parents stuff that is unclean. He didn't
Just
tell them.
spreading the dirt all over the place.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's right in my
I
eyes.
think Samson's an interesting picture of every single believer in the world
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
We're all set apart, consecrated, called
Yeah.
by God, every single one of, and we're all wretched and rebellious and
Yeah, we still
sinful.
have that within us. Yeah.
We walk just like Samson did.
Yeah.
And we don't like doing it by ourselves. So
Heck no.
we spread
Yeah.
the dirt around.
Absolutely.
And here's the thing, to Tim's point, is even though he's now unclean,
Mhm.
ceremonially he's unclean,
Mhm.
but God is still going to use him.
And he still uses.
He still
That's
uses-
That's
When
the
he was
point.
unclean at the point of killing the lion.
Yeah, exactly. So doing that,
All the other
Um,
stuff just made it that much worse.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's why these stories are so
Yeah.
interesting and just so weird and bizarre to us, because it's like, wait a minute.
Oh.
He was told that he's going to be a Nazarite. He's supposed to be upholding all these things. And now all of a sudden you have this. But the story doesn't deviate. It continues on. And like I said, God is still the gracious God who said, I'm going to use him as a judge. And so he still has that role to play. Let's see.
Verse 8.
Yeah, verse 8. When he returned later to take her, oh no, let's see, we got past that.
Yeah.
Let's go over it.
Yeah, you're on
We're
verse
on
10.
verse 10, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Then his father went down to the woman, and Samson made a feast there, for the young men customarily did this. And it came about when they saw him that they brought 30 companions to be with him. And Samson said to them, Let me now propound a riddle to you. If you will indeed tell it to me within the 7 days of the feast and find it out, then I will give you 30 linen wraps and 30 changes of clothes. But if you are unable to tell me, then you shall give me 30 linen wraps and 30 changes of clothes. And they said to him, Propound your riddle that we may hear it. By the way, he's not supposed to have anything to do with the vineyard, and that's exactly the route that they took. They were going through there, and if you have young men and you're throwing a party for a wedding, more than likely there's going to be some wine there. He's around that. He's surrounding himself with
Christ
this.
changed water
So he's
to
un-
wine at a wedding.
He's unclean, and you got all this stuff, and there's all this background possibly going on. I'm not saying that it's just something to think about.
Yeah.
It just kind of makes sense. So he propounds this riddle, verse 14. So he said to them, Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. But they could not tell the riddle in 3 days. Then it came about on the 4th day that they said to Samson's wife, Entice your husband that he may tell us the riddle, lest we burn you and your father's house with fire. You have invited us to impoverish us. Is this not so? And Samson's wife wept before him and said, You only hate me. You do not love me. You have propounded a riddle to the sons of my people and have not told it to me. And he said to her, Behold, I have not told it to my father or mother. So should I tell you? However, she wept before him 7 days while their feast lasted. So these were long weddings, not like we have today, 1 day and then it's done. And it came about on the 7th day that he told her because she pressed him so hard. So she was nagging him the whole time. Finally, he gets sick of it. I can't stand it.
He had 7 days to
Yeah.
change his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she's constantly after him to tell the riddle. So she then told the riddle to the sons of her people. So he tells her, she tells them. So the men of the city said to him, On the 7th day before the sun went down, What is sweeter than honey? And what is stronger than a lion? And he said to them, If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have found out my riddle.
I guess that serves her right.
Absolutely, yeah.
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 Any other circumstances that
Yeah.
might be considered a tad bit rude.
So he just called it as it is. But listen to verse 19. Then the Spirit of Yahweh came upon him mightily, and he went down to Ashkelon and killed 30 of them, and took their spoil and gave the changes of clothes to those who hold the riddle, or who told the riddle. And his anger burned, and he went up to his father's house. But Samson's wife was given to his companion, who had been his friend. Yeah. So the dad of this bride-to-be is now, he's mad. He's gone back home, and all this stuff has happened. And so presumably the dad thinks, well, she was supposed to get married, so I'm just going to give her to to the companion. And he went into another place to take the clothes from somebody else. So Samson's already beginning to be a judge, but some of the things are getting kind of questionable. But still, God is going to use him. God is still using him. Because notice it was the Spirit of the Lord that came upon him, and he went down to do this. I think we have time to do 15 real quick, or at least some of it. But after a while, in the time of wheat harvest, it came about that Samson visited his wife with a young goat, and said, I will go into my wife in her room. But her father did not let him enter. And her father said, I really thought you had hated her intensely. And so there's, good reason. She betrayed him to save herself and her dad. And so he's thinking, oh, he's never going to come back. And so he's telling him this, I thought you hated her intensely. So I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister more beautiful than she? Please let her be yours instead. So he's like, I'm willing to give you my even more beautiful younger daughter. Samson then said to them, this time I shall be blameless in regard to the Philistines when I do them harm. So now he's just saying, now I got a reason, and now I'm just. My wife's been taken away from me, given to somebody else, and you got some dues to pay. And Samson went and caught 300 foxes and took torches and turned the foxes tail to tail and put one torch in the middle between two tails. And when he had set fire to the torches, he released the foxes into the standing grain of the Philistines, thus burning up both shocks and the standing grain along with the vineyards and groves. So this was about harvest time, and now they got no food. So he's judging them. And this is what he chooses to do in this strange story about these foxes. So he's getting his payback. He's starting to judge. Then the Philistines said, who did this? And they said, Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he took his wife and gave her to his companion. So the Philistines came up and burned her and her father with fire. They
Pretty treacherous.
played around and they found out. This whole story is just so
It's bizarre.
mind blowing.
Can't trust those Philistines. They are just rotten, man.
Yeah.
Rotten,
So they took them out, even though she had given them the answer to the riddle, and kept them from poverty. Now they're mad because they've gotten their wheat's gone for the season, and so they burn her and her father's house. Burned them up with fire. And Samson said to them, since you act like this, I surely will take revenge on you, but after that I will quit. It's just a bizarre story. It's so weird. Because it's like, well, was Samson there watching this whole thing the whole time? Don't know. It just says, and he's going to take vengeance, and now he's even more, got even more reason. Verse 9. Then the Philistines went up and camped.
Verse 8 to 8.
Oh,
Yeah.
And he struck them ruthlessly with a great slaughter, and he went down and lived in the cleft of the rock of Edom. So he goes and he's, we're not told exactly what took place there, but he slaughtered a bunch of them. He took it into his own hands and he began to do being the judge. Verse 9, then the Philistines went up and camped in Judah and spread out in Lehi. And the men of Judah said, why have you come against us? And they said, we have come up to bind Samson in order to do to him as he did to us. Then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cleft of the rock of Etam and said to Samson, do you not know that the Philistines are rulers over us? Now that's a strange thing to say. Here they're going to a judge, and I don't know if they knew that he was supposed to be the judge and that he's going to deliver them. But here they are. They're like, these guys are our rulers. What are you doing? You're causing all kinds of harm and problems for us. And so it's just kind of a weird thing where his own people kind of are turning against him. They're cowardly.
Mm-hmm.
It's more sign of their cowardice here, because when you're, again, as I said many, many times, when you are the children of God and you're betraying God, that you have this. You have these. What is these phobias? And so now they're too even afraid to go. We'll go with you, Samson, and take care of these guys. Now they're like, you're causing this trouble. What's the deal? And it's only the one guy. So they are complaining and saying, hey, don't you know that they're the rulers over us? What then is this that you have done to us? And he said to them, as they did to me, so I have done to them. So I'm just eye for an eye.
Eye for an eye.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's all I'm doing.
You
Paying them
started
back.
it.
Yeah.
You started it.
You
did
drew
first.
first blood.
And I'm finishing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So that's kind of what's going on here. And they said to him, we have come down to bind you so that we may give you into the hand of the Philistines. And Samson said to them, oh, yeah. He says, swear to me that you will not kill me.
You yourselves.
Yeah. So then he says, so they said to him, no, but we will bind you fast and give you into their hands, yet surely we will not kill you. Then they bound him and with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. So one of the things that's interesting about Samson is we always get this idea. It's like I was talking earlier. As kids, we're told that he's this big, strong guy.
Mhm.
But more than likely, he wasn't. He was very probably average or below average. And that's what makes him so miraculous, I think, is that he's set apart for God's purpose. And it's always when God's Spirit fills him that he goes and does his thing. And he turns into the gorilla that's going to take on 100 men. Yeah.
Hulks out.
Yeah. And so he just, yeah. It's one of those type of things, yeah, where he all of a sudden just, and that's why people are puzzled as to how strong that he is, because it's not a normal thing. So
They must have been a little fearful. They must have been a little fearful of him because it was 3,000 of them that
well, yeah, that's
showed up to bind him.
that's
I mean,
that's what's
that's a
interesting.
lot of rope to carry.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and we don't know how much the great slaughter was.
Right.
So they're obviously wary of him. They know that
Yeah.
God is doing things through him, and they know he's not normal. He's Abby someone.
He was
Abby.
abnormal.
Yeah. And so they're treating him with kid gloves, and they're saying, in order for us to save ourselves, we're going to have to turn you over. And he just lets them. Because they promised not to kill him. Verse 14, and when he came to Lehi, the Philistines shouted as they met him, and the Spirit of Yahweh came upon him mightily, so that the ropes that were on his arms were as flax that is burnt up with fire, and his bonds dropped from his hands. And he found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, so he reached out and took it and killed 1,000 men with it. Then Samson said, with the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone of a donkey, I've killed 1,000 men. So he just slaughters, the enemy, boom, with a jawbone. That's a heck of a jawbone, and he just wipes them out. And then in verse 17, and then it came about when he had finished speaking that he threw the jawbone from his hand, and he named that place Ramath Lehi, which means the high place of the jawbone. And it came about then he became very thirsty, and he called to Yahweh and said, Thou hast given this great deliverance by the hand of thy servant, and now shall I die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised? But God split the hollow place that is in the Lehi, so that water came out of it. When he drank, his strength returned, and he revived. Therefore he named it En Hakor, which is Lehi to this day. So he judged Israel 20 years in the days of the Philistines. One of the bizarre stories of Samson. And then next we will cover the failure of Samson in chapter 16. So there's interesting things that are going on. We see that God does, in this one case, makes a special exception and says, kind of like Isaac, kind of like Jacob, this is the person that I'm going to use for these purposes, and he's going to judge. And Samson is by far not perfect.
Oh, yeah.
He violates that vow over and over and
Yeah.
over. He
He's
throws
around-
all these,
yeah.
he's surrounded by
Death.
dead bodies.
Yeah,
and
he's
it's like,
he's
he's-
and that's the interesting thing is God says he's going to have to refrain from all these things to not become unclean, and yet he's going to deliver them through murder,
Yep.
through actually not through murder, but
No.
through killing.
vengeance.
Yeah.
Vengeance.
So
He's
they're
going-
on dead
he's going to
bodies
do it,
everywhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
So he's going to avenge them, and he's going to continue to judge them, and it's his eye that gets him into problem, and it's his eye that costs him, and so we'll get into that next week. So with that, we'll continue on. Any comments?
Now, water came out of the jawbone of the ass? or-
No,
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 no.
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 The
No.
19?
God split the hollow place that is in Lehi, and water came
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah.
And then he drank, and his spirit was refreshed.
So apparently there was some place that was hollow,
Well,
and water came up.
Yeah, he named it En Hakore,
Yeah.
which is in Lehi to this day. Is
Yeah.
what, as far as the time of the writing of the Judges.
Yeah. He was here in Utah apparently.
Incidentally,
Yeah, near AF.
next to the Hilton Laura.
But so that's one of the that's more
Yeah, right next to it.
of the strange accounts that we have in Judges, and there'll be more. And even more horror is coming as we go through the rest of the chapters. More debauchery and other things, and so
Oh, yeah.
it's just one of those things. But Samson is an interesting character, and he's going to
Delightful.
fail in the next one. So we'll see that. Well, if there's no questions or any more comments, we'll close in prayer. Father, thank you for these accounts, these stories that you've given us. Lord, I thank you that that they're written by men who are flawed, and that they're about men who are flawed and women who are flawed. And Father, we're just so thankful that you show us these things, and that in spite of who we are and what we are, that we are wretched sinners. In spite of that, you can use us, and we're so thankful. I'm thankful that you are mindful of the fact that we are but dust. We're just puffed up dirt, and we're like sheep. We go astray. We're prone to wander, but somehow, some way, you're able to utilize that for the good of your kingdom, in your name's sake, and even for our good. You work all things together for good, and we're seeing examples of that in these stories and these accounts. And we're just so thankful that you are the God who works in spite of who and what we are, and we're thankful that you save and that you do use us and that we can be used, Lord. I pray that if there's anyone that's out there that thinks that that you cannot use them, that they would know that you can, regardless of who we are. When we are surrendered to you, and when you regenerate us, and you will use us. And we're thankful for the Holy Spirit through whom we can know you. And so, Lord, we pray that you would just have be glorified and have your way with us. We praise you, Lord. We thank you. We bless you. In Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Such